Right guys, welcome back to another episode in this health phase. Back end of the health phase now, so actually it's the last week before we kind of enter our next phase, which is prep. So I'm running chest and arms today, so we'll run you through that whole session, give you an insight into what training looks like at the moment. There's been a bit of a shift on training. If you follow my Instagram, you'll see the shift there. Is, in basic terms, dropping load down a bit and focusing a lot more on precision and how I'm actually training. I'm actually using the load more, basically making less load harder, instead of doing what I've done for the past 10 years, which going all out on load, all out on reps till failure, and kind of burying myself in every session really, which at the end of the day, after doing years of that kind of training, is it actually causing the benefit that I want and the response that I want? Potentially not. So I've gone back and forth in my mind about how to cover training. Maybe it's slightly overthinking, I don't know, but it was getting to the point in this past off season where majority of movements I was maxing out on load and maxing out the machines. So something kind of had to change within that. Because I can't put more load on, and if I want to see progression over the next 5-6 years, it's not going to be just more load, which means I have to change my training up slightly. So you'll see in today's session that everything is a lot more controlled, everything is a lot more mind to muscle connection, and basically working on feel, really. There's still going to be load behind that, obviously. There has to be some sort of a decent amount of tension to actually cause an adaptation and cause a stress on the muscle to actually break it down. But the main focus is not just on load. The main focus is getting to failure and taking just that muscle to failure, and not letting other muscle groups take over. So there's a lot more kind of mental exertion on board during the sessions. I'm more so mentally exhausted than physically exhausted post-workout, which I think is good, which in turn is going to help me recover better. And then when we move into prep, it's going to help me respond better to the different variables that we're doing here, to the cardio, to the less food, to basically dropping body fat. It should help me respond much better to that, and then not be like a delay in that, because my past training is just burying myself and causing probably too much fatigue within the whole body and not just the working muscle. So basic terms, that's kind of what we're working on, and you'll see through my training that is kind of what we're covering. So session hasn't really changed, same principles apply, same movement patterns. Sets and reps have changed a bit, so I'm doing more straight sets and adding in drop sets and rest pause sets to the session, so that we can again extend those sets to really push the muscle failure and focus a lot on fullness and pump. I've noticed in the last week, I've been doing this for the last week, and I've noticed that the physique is looking a lot more fuller, a lot more fresh, and that's because I'm not digging myself into a hole every session, because I only have 2 rest days a week. So that is probably not enough rest days when I was burying myself to actually recover from training. So even though the past week and this week has kind of felt like a deload to me because the load has dropped, I've seen the benefits in the physique. So that's all I can ask for. Another thing that's been added into my training is Luke, who is my coach, and you would have seen over the past 5 years we've worked together. He's actually given me loads to hit on every single movement, so I'm following the training plan to an absolute T, and just trusting the process. I'm putting a lot of trust in Luke, which I do anyway. I have absolute full faith in how he programs me and the whole process, which is why I stayed with him for 5 years, because we just continue to get better, and a lot of that is down to him. So instead of me he would tell me to back off a bit a lot of the time, and a lot of the time it would go in one ear and out the other, and I would just crack on as I would normally and do my own thing. But this time around I'm planning to stick to it, and actually do what I'm told, because that's the reason we have coaches is to do what they say, basically, and I'm willing to put the effort and the time into trial this for a decent period of time and take it through prep and see how we get on. So yeah, we're going to get stuck into it. I will talk along the way, show you what's what, yeah, enjoy. Also with the training process, don't get the miscommunication might be in that I'm coming in and training less intense, and that is not the case at all. The training intensity still remains exactly the same. Still training as hard, if not there's probably more intensity in the actual working muscle being put on. Might just come across in footage that looks like I'm not trying very hard because I'm not shouting on every rep, and the load isn't as heavy, but that's not the case at all. For me, I can't come in and not train hard. We still train as hard as possible, so don't think that that's not being taking place. It most certainly is. So just remember that when you're watching, the training. But yeah, pec deck done. Two drop sets on that. In terms of the drop sets and how they're running, I drop the load by 2 pins, and then wait 15 seconds, go in and hit another set, pretty straight off the bat. So 2 of those, like I said, 3 sets, and that's kind of what we're looking like. 10 to 15 reps on both, so I got 15 on the first set, 14 on the second, and 13 on the last. And then with the drop set, obviously waiting 15 seconds, drop by 2 pins, and I got like 6 reps on both of those drop sets. So, an extra 12 reps for that whole movement. And the chest is fully blown right now. So the aim is to obviously keep this fullness and just build on top of it, whilst taking the muscle to failure. So it's not really a massive change in training, but it is slightly a different approach than I've done in the past. So, but it might be interesting for you to watch over if you watched my other training footage, vlogs. to see the difference from kind of what I'm working on now to what I was working on before. You know, like for example, I train legs Tuesday, today's Thursday. You know, I was doing hack squat 7 plates aside for sets of 7 to 8. Luke dropped that down to 5.5 plates, and I failed on 9. And the reason for that is I'm spending more and more time before the hack squat on other movements and really maximising those movements to the point where we're building up a lot of pre-exhaust for the session, which is then in turn making the hack squat much harder than it normally is, which is the whole point. You know, if you can get away with using less loads than you can use but get more result, it's essentially going to increase your longevity in the sport. You know, I can't continue to progress 7 plates. I could easily take that for 10 or 12, but am I getting what I want out of it? You know, am I using the rest of the body to move the load? Am I just using my joints to shift that load? And the answer is more than likely yes, because you're in with that amount with load, and when you're going that heavy, it's a fight or flight mode. Your body's under. You know, your body and you are not thinking really about isolating the quads in that set. You're thinking about getting a certain number and getting out the hole with anything that you can. Whether that's you using your glutes and hamstrings more than your quads, you know, you might be doing that. So yeah, you'll hear me jabber on about this for a while and do on my stories on Instagram, so I'll probably bore people with that. But it's, you know, I'm going to talk about it because it's the biggest thing in my bodybuilding right now is this switch over in training. So I'm going to talk about it. It's at the front of my mind all the time. So I'm going to voice it. You know, I'm not going to beat around the bush and talk about something that isn't on my mind. You know, I'm going to tell you exactly what is going through my mind and what is in the process and how I'm going along my journey. That's the whole point of documenting this. So anyway, incline Smith. We're only working up to 2.5 plates on this today. I think there's 3 sets on here as well. It's 3 straight sets. I think it's 8 to 12, and then 2 of them I think have rest pause sets. So a rest pause set, we're again looking at 15 seconds after your first working set. Wait 15 seconds and go again for as many reps as you can, rest pause set. So again, adding on 2 additional sets onto this movement. Again, pushing down blood into the chest, you know, for as long as we can and as intense as we can. So. So it's actually 3 straight sets on here, all 10 to 15. First 2 are a bit heavier, so 120. Well, they've all got rest pause sets, and then our last set is 100 with a rest pause set as well. So 3 straight sets, 3 rest pause sets, slightly lower in load, but as you can see from that set, failing, with good form. So essentially all the load that I'm using is solely on the chest instead of, if I was to go heavier, it might be put onto delts more than anything. So I'm just trying to isolate really, still having adequate load. Obviously normally I'll be on like 3.5 plates on here, so it's just a bit of a different strategy. Whether we'll stick to this through prep, I'm not too sure. I think so, but we'll have to see. My plan is just to, like I said to you at the start, do what I'm told and stick to it. So we'll see. But rest pause set on here, and then 2 more sets, and then we go into our kind of machine press. So moving on to our nitro press, which is our pin loaded movement for today. Second press, 2 sets, 10 to 15 on both, with a drop set on the last. Again, reduction in load, just trying to feel my way through it. My chest is already pretty fatigued now from my last press of doing 3 straight sets on there. So again, with that pre-exhaust work, by the time we get into flies, we're pretty much done. But that's the whole point of this kind of training. Slowing everything down, solid stretch, and a contraction on each rep at the end of each rep, which is something that I didn't really do much of when I was focusing more on progressive overload and load, to be honest. I would move it well with good form, but I never really contracted it at the start. And I think the biggest thing that I'm doing now is actually contracting through the whole rep instead of just pressing. I'm literally contracting my chest through the whole rep and actually just using that to move the load instead of brute force. So that's the kind of difference in the training. Kind of sums up a bit better. But yeah, 2 sets on here, and then we go into our last kind of chest movement, which is a fly, cable fly. Yeah, we get stuck in. So yeah, there's not much left in the chest in terms of strength, which is good. Which is what I'm trying to do in this. But don't get me wrong, it's very, very hard mentally to take a step back from what I love doing. Which is putting as much load on and just going balls to ball. That's my bread and butter. That's what I've done for the last 10 years. So it's all about now trying to continue to enjoy even this style of training. You know, bodybuilding is not always about what you want to do. It's more so about what you need to do and what's going to cause the greatest response. And that might mean doing something that you don't want to do, or that you don't like, but specifically doing. Which is kind of in the realm where we are right now. But if I see benefits from it, if I, you know, a bit different now because we're moving into prep, but in an off-season setting, if I was to go into that and see progression in terms of growth through this type of training, and obviously I'd stick to it and want to pursue it a bit further. So it's definitely difficult, but just got to get used to it, I suppose. Get used to it and crack on and continue doing what I'm doing. Continue doing what I'm being told. So stop being stubborn. And then with myself, you know, going into prep now in the next 4 days. I start prep. You know, on paper, yes, we have a start date. You know, we have, you know, 10, 12 weeks of dieting, and then we'll be kind of stage ready, and then we got shows, and then, you know, prep finishes on paper around October time-ish, depending on how long we want to take it. The process doesn't change, the mindset doesn't change. From off-season, health phase, prep, it all stays the same. You know, don't think that you need to flick a switch as soon as kind of prep starts. If you're having to do that, then you weren't in the best place mentally in the off-season. You've got to treat each one the same. It doesn't matter. You've got to treat your off-season like your prep, and your prep like your off-season. And mentality doesn't switch as soon as you go into a different phase. It just carries on. You know, if you're really in deep with bodybuilding, and it's what you want to do career-wise, and it's what you want to do competitively-wise, and work your way up, has to be your life. And for it to be your life, there is no switching on and switching off. It's just a constant on. Yes, we have periods of time where we need to back off training slightly post-show, and you know, we get that, but that's, you know, a few days, and then we're back in the gym, getting after that rebound phase, and you know, everything is in line, everything is one the whole year round. That's how I like to approach it anyway. That's how I feel accomplished in giving 100% to every single phase that I go into, whether it's off-season prep, health phase, even backing off 100%, with 100% effort, you know, giving every single phase the respect it needs. That requires staying locked in for year round. Yeah. Cable flies. 3 sets on here again. 12 to 15, I think. I think we got some rest pause sets in here on the last 2. So first set, straight set to failure. Last 2 2 drop sets. What I like to do on here, as you'll see from the footage, is have my feet back and putting all my weight through my feet, so I'm leaning forward and, you know, leaning against the weight, so when I come up to stretch, my torso, my chest is, I'm pushing it forward, letting my arms go back and basically letting myself hang there and putting my whole body and the weight into the stretch. And then obviously as I contract, we come through, my upper body comes back a bit as I contract, but I'm leaning into the weight. That's, in terms of like stability, that's how I found it to be the best. Instead of doing 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, I like to be in that position. I feel like I can get much more contraction and stability and balance through doing that, and better reps. So that's how we like to do on that. 2 more sets with drop sets and then arm work. And that wraps up today's chest day. Chest and arms done. On the way home, post-workout meal. 3 rounds of posing we did post-workout, which was good. Start to get back into the habit of doing that now. Even though we kept it in through the whole off season, you know. Pretty much every week I would do, you know, 3-4 rounds of posing. So now it would just be, as we go into next week, daily, and in the evening as well. So every morning pretty much I will pose, whether that's post-workout or for my check-in, and then I'll do an evening posing round as well, which I've always done in prep, and it seemed to do pretty well, just to get 2 rounds of posing in a day. And that will see us for that, and obviously like start getting a posing routine as well sorted as well, so we can start practicing that, and then it'll just be, you know, day-to-day posing and normal routine. So, you know, nothing really changes for the rest of this week. I've got like 2 or 3 off-plan meals. It's kind of up to me what I do. At the moment it's Thursday. I've had 1 off-plan meal. I think I'm having another off-plan meal on Sunday, so I might have one tonight before pull. No idea what I'm going to have. I'm not really food focused, but I'm not at all food focused at the moment. fancy anything. So either I do that or just stick to the plan. You know, I don't really just want to eat for the sake of it, because there's no point. But you know, we're in good condition, so we can kind of make the most of food at the moment. And obviously next week, off-plan meals will get scrapped and food will start going down. So exciting times ahead. So yeah, that's chest and arms done. Hope you took something from today's session. Obviously it's going to be a bit different from a watching point of view of how I'm training. You know, but I just put on my story then about change being daunting, and I'm not a fan of change, which is why I love bodybuilding so much, because so little amount of it changes day to day. It's the same routine every single day, which is why I love it. So making a change, and a big one like training, is very daunting for me, and you know, I question myself a lot with that. That's just who I am, and I obviously want to be giving 110% to bodybuilding. You know, to make sure I'm doing that, we've got to be in the right place with training. You know, so we'll see how this goes over the next couple of weeks. I do want to run it for a good amount of time, and you know, see the benefits of what this training's going to have on the physique. Really, you know, it's going to hopefully improve recovery, which I know it has done for even after the last couple of 2 weeks. Recovery has improved and fullness has come back, and I don't feel as battered, which is good, you know. But obviously, like I said, my mentality towards bodybuilding was, if I feel battered, it's a good thing. It means I'm giving everything. But again, you've got to see how your body recovers, and are you getting the response you want off the training you're doing. It's all a learning process. It's all figuring out what works for your body. You know, we don't actually know 100% what kind of training gives us the most benefit in terms of adding as much muscle as possible. No one actually knows that. You know, obviously we know what grows tissue, but everyone's different, and everyone's going to have a different approach. And whether you're doing the right kind of training for your body is another question, you know. So we're all learning, we're all trying to see what works, and what kind of training style works best for our body, and how much growth we can get out of it. And it's only about trialing that and trialing these things that we're going to find that out. So that's the whole point around doing this, is to trial it and see how it works. So I'm going to go home. I'll leave you there. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to tune in next week.